Thank you for letting us be between you and a beer at the end of the day. And welcome to everyone who's interested in all things authority control. This session, the purpose or the birth of this session came about from an idea of a year ago at WOLFcon. There was really no authority control to talk about. The MARC Authority App had been created, but it wasn't like out living in the world in a library. But here now, 6 months, 9 months later, a year later, my library has we have implemented the MARC Authority App, and we are doing our work in it. And there's a great deal more development actively going on. So it seemed like a good time to tell you about that. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Lisa Robinson. I'm the head of metadata management at Michigan State University. Okay, so the outline of my talk is I'm going to talk about 4 things. I'm going to talk about what the current capabilities are in the MARC Authority App as we're using it. I'll mention the current workflows we're doing, mention some of the challenges we're facing, and make a few recommendations for those of you who may be thinking of implementing authority control. Oh, and excuse my hoarse voice. I'm getting over a cold. Okay, so a few facts about us. Michigan State is in a joint catalog with the Library of the State of Michigan, and we are in a tenant hosted by EBSCO. We went live with cataloging and authority control in July of 2022. Previously, we had implemented acquisitions. So last July, the hosting folks were busy loading 6.6 million bibliographic records, which they did in June. And then they had to turn around and do 2.7 million authority records in July. The MARC Authority App was included as part of our implementation of cataloging. And we began doing manual authority work immediately, like 3 days, I think, after the records were loaded. And we began loading our authority updates the next month, because monthly updates from our vendor. So that would be in August 22. Okay, good, you can see that. So this is what a typical search might look like in the MARC Authority App. The example I have chosen is the recent booby trap heading that was discussed on the BCC list for Heritage Series. I would say the best thing, absolute best thing about the Authority App is its searching capability. We have more searching capability than we need. You can do a keyword search. You can search by a variety of indexes. A search like this one, which I just did as a keyword search, you can also then sort your results by the references, authorized references, or by the type of heading. So in this case, it's a keyword search, but I make it seem like a browse by sorting it alphabetically by the entry. You can choose to see the cross-references in your authority records or not. So if in this case, I have chosen not to see the cross-references. So I'm seeing just the main entries that I want to see. And there, like I said, you can accommodate and load various controlled vocabularies. In fact, we have authority besides LC/SH subjects and LC/NAF names, and LC/GFT, so the LC ones. We have RBMS, at the moment it's the old vocabulary. We have MESH, we have AAT, and we have the thesaurus for graphic materials. Oh, and 2 different local authority files. So we got it all. I mentioned that there's a lot of searching capability. There are not, I just there in that example, that was just a keyword search, but you can choose an index to search it, and there's quite a number of ones you can choose from. The one of these that in my team we use the most is the identifier search, which is also a great search. We can search on the LCCN or any other identifier that's in an authority record. And the great thing about the identifier search here is that we do not have to maintain the spaces if you're familiar with LCNAF, between the alphabetical prefix and the number, which means we can copy our identifiers directly out of URIs in our bit record and just pop them in here, which is, well, we like that. That's good. It's quick. There is also, however, an advanced search, which opens in a separate modal. Now, don't tell Kalila, but I actually hardly use this. After she went to great trouble to have her team build it. But that's because all the other searching is so good. Like I've never had to resort to this search. But I understand that there are plans to port this type of search over into inventory. And so think about that. If you're using inventory and trying to search inventory, wouldn't this be the best thing ever? So that's why I mentioned it. You can also, sorry, I have to move that. There we go. So I mentioned you can search on the identifier, the LCCN. And when you do search on a particular record, it comes up, it opens in the third pane, just like, you know, in inventory. So what's good about this is you have this consistent behavior between inventory and the authority app. That's really important for my team because what are we doing? We're in the authority app and then they're going into inventory to edit MARC records. That's the nature of authority work. And the fact that it looks the same and is consistent, is consistent is very important to, for my team. Okay. Oops. You can, once you have a record, you found a record, you can actually edit your authority records. Now, I know you're thinking, oh my God, you don't want to edit an authority record because it's an authority record. I will say there are times you do have to go in and do something. And sometimes you might wish to add a local note. I would say the editing of authority records, the most useful thing there is when you have a local authority record. And I have 2 different files of those because since they're local, I do need to edit those records. And as you see, the editing of an authority record looks just the same as it does in inventory, which is again a good thing. Okay, so there's all wonderful things in the MARC Authority App. Workflows. What we have been able to do is do all the work we would normally do for our authority work using the MARC Authority App and inventory. We can search for and edit bibliographic records in inventory. Now we work on reports based on from our vendor, our authorities vendor, because that is true. There are no reports yet in Folio. We use Quick MARC to edit those records in inventory, and we use data export, MARC edit, data import, you know, that process to edit batches of records. We can add new and updated authority records each month using data import. Now, there was a brief time when we were sad about data import because we typically get about 5,000 to 7,000 records a month to load. And I was in the habit of loading them in one file. And so there was a brief moment where I had to keep chopping them up into smaller files. But that problem, I will say, has gone away. 5,000, as was said, is the magic number, as was said in the last session. And so I'm not, touch wood, I'm not having any problem at the moment with my 5,000 to 7,000 size record files, and I can load them in data import. Yay. Oh, and I don't even wait till off hours. Don't tell the catalogers. Yeah, because anyway, we won't go into that. And as the last part of our authority workflows, we can add and delete authority records individually as needed. So it's all the tools are there, and we are doing all of those. We are trying out, since we just earlier in the summer moved to ORCID, we are trying out as an experiment the workflow of bib auth linking. the ability that came with ORCID to link a heading in a bibliographic record to an authority record. So we're trying that out right now. What we have found is that some types of headings work great, some do not, some are kind of in between. So we're working on that. And what's the reason we want to do this is that when you have linked that heading to an authority record, if there is a change made to the authority record, as in you downloaded the updated authority record from your vendor, then the changes made in the authority record in that heading flow down to the bib record. This is like the best thing ever, because right now that's a significant workflow for my team. We get this list, it's probably about 500 to 600 headings that every month a person, or actually two people on my team, they have to go into inventory and find those records and manually make those changes. Now, some of them we make in batch, and a lot we do like individually, one at a time. Well, wouldn't it be a great savings, right? If we'd still have some of that work, but if the authority records could flow those the change authority records could flow the change down into the bib records. We're very excited about that sort of potential. Yes, it would definitely save time in routine heading updates. So this is an example right now of what bib auth linking. So at the moment in ORCID, the functionality is we do this manually, one at a time, one heading at a time. Now I know you're thinking, well, that's a workable workflow. But the thing is, I know I really wanted it to be initially something we did manually so that we could come to understand what exactly was happening and that my team could get used to this. Once we understand what's going on, then you can automate it, was my thinking. So what happens in bib auth linking is that the part of the heading, which is now controlled, is put in a box that can't be edited. So John Carpenter, born in 1948, the first example there, that heading is controlled, which means somebody can't just come along and stick their cursor in there and mess up my perfectly controlled heading. The relationship designator, which is not a controlled field, is still left open for editing. And the URI for that name for John Carpenter is in its own box in Subfield 0. Now, let's say you realize, oh, this is all wrong. You can unlink this heading and then you can edit everything. So remember I said that some things were working really well. This is one of them. And some things are still developing. So in the next two examples, the President's United States drama and New York drama, in both cases, the authority record referenced in the URI actually should be controlling all the subfields. Development is going to take place. So there is actually a whole authority record for New York drama, which kind of surprised me. In the fourth example, down the one screenplays, you'll note that there's maybe an annoying thing happening, but not a bad thing, is that the order of the subfield 0 and the subfield 2 are reversed because, cataloging is always inconsistent. And so the subfield 0 should always be at the end. I mean, that's not a big problem, but we can work on that. Yeah, okay, that'll be other ones. But the important thing here is that we can do it, and we're starting to build the capacity to do it even better. Okay, so I divided my talk about challenges into two parts. Some challenges that are resolved and some that are ongoing. So the resolved challenges are, so as someone who was implementing last year, boy, did we have a lot to learn all at once in the beginning. And so if any of you out there are thinking, your implementation is coming up, well, good that you're here and that you can begin to plan for what kind of, you can begin to plan for what kind of training you want to you'll need. So for example, like my folks, we just, boom, we were implemented. They had to learn how to use the Authority App. Okay. They had to learn how to use Quick Mark. Okay, that would be expected. We spent a lot of work creating our own keyboard shortcuts because authority work is a repetitive thing. You're just doing one thing after doing the same thing over and over. There are many ways. Well, I had no idea how to do this. It turned out there were many ways to, and I'm sure there are many ways that people develop keyboard shortcuts. We happen to use a Chrome extension, which is called Auto Control. I will say the nicest thing about that is that it's easy to fiddle with. It's not the greatest thing in the world, especially because the cursor movements are based on pixel addresses, and those things can change. But it's working for us, so I'm happy. That's all you need. My team had to learn how to use MARC Edit. That was a huge hurdle. Now, I know many libraries, when they moved to Folio, they've already been using MARC Edit for all kinds of things. We were a Sierra library, right? And the editing capabilities of global update in Sierra. I think I was the only one in my team, who had ever even opened MARC Edit. And I'd only done that to look at some file somebody sent me. So I knew how to turn the thing on. We didn't know how to do anything with it. We did send one of my staff people to MARC Edit training. And I'm sure it was great training, but it was not oriented towards editing records. No surprise, the MARC Edit training was oriented towards XML transformations and this stuff people tend to use MARC Edit for. But we needed to know how to replace things and how to use tools. And so we're still I put this resolved in that we are actually editing records using MARC Edit, but I still feel like that's also ongoing. We're still learning a lot. We're learning tricks every day. We had to learn about the data import and the initial file limitations and how to troubleshoot those. That's actually gotten a lot better because now the messages from data import when a file doesn't load, or when 2 records don't load in a file, I now actually know how to get in there and figure out what's going on most of the time. And I put this as resolved, but this is also ongoing. Searching inventory. The problem for authority control work in the way searching inventory is designed is that it does not have, it's somebody's fault, but it does not have enough precision. When I'm searching something, I need to be able to say, I want this thing in this MARC tagged field and possibly even this subfield 2 code. That would be the current work I'm trying to do with RBMS. So we make use, but I put it here as resolved because my team, we are using searching in inventory 4 different ways. We use the search for certain things. We use browse. Browse was a real lifesaver. We use the query search a lot. And we're also set up to do Z3950 searching with using MARC Edit. The trouble is, every one of those methods of searching for us has some limitation. And so we're always trying to you search it one way and you search it another, and that can feel frustrating. But I did put it here as resolved because we are getting it done. So the ones that are really, ongoing. Okay, searching inventory with precision. I'll just say it here. Now, I think we really, 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 really please need a genre search function. I am dying right now because our BMS changed their vocabulary just in July. They deprecated their old vocabulary and changed to a new vocabulary. I have to edit those records. I can't find those records because we have a subject search and genre is included in the subject search, but these RBMS terms are often exactly the same figures, right, as subjects LCSH or as LCGFT. So the last time, in this example, I had to change the word almanacs, which is an RBMS term. I had to retrieve 369 records when I only needed to fix 11 of them. Now, I know there are ways, and we do it, you pull out the big records and you use MARC Edit to winnow them down. But it'd be nicer if I could just search on what I need. And so you can't separate the LCSH from the LCGFT and RBMS. In inventory, punctuation and diacritics are a problem for us for searching. So, for example, the presence or when you enter a search term, the presence or absence of the double dashes between the subdivisions of a heading, they produce different results. So, something like presence United States election compared to presence -- election, elections -- United States -- election. They pull up different retrievals in our system. Now, I don't know if that's because of the way our system was set up, but all of the records that were initially migrated for us, they search with spaces between the various subdivisions. As soon as any of those records is edited, you now have to search it with the punctuation between. Well, the thing is, how do I know whether a record has ever been edited before? You know, it drives us crazy. We also struggle with diacritics because the presence or absence of a diacritic, like the recent LC change to add the macron to Maori, we have no way of typing at the macron, at least not one that I know of. We don't have a character map. I've tried different things that will put that diacritic in. So we have it for something like that, since if you search on Maori without the macron over the egg, in my catalog right now, you won't get anything in inventory. That's because we made the change that LC required us to make. So we get around this by finding the word we need to search on in another place and copying it. But it would be easier if there's some way to put the diacritic in, just because the diacritic matters to your search results, to whether you retrieve something or not. And the last thing is, it could be easier to load a single authority record from OCLC. Now, we heard it, I was in the previous session, they were talking about single record import. And I'm like, well, couldn't get that to work for 30 records. So I'll be following up on that. But right now, to get an authority record, which we sometimes, you need one record to be brought in, we have to export it to our desktop, which gets exported. You don't have control over this as a DAT file. You have to change the file section. You have to open up the record. You have to edit it because OCLC exports that record with the OCLC number in the control field. We wrote ourselves a saved task in MARC Edit to do that. So, that saves some time. Then you have to save it and compile it, and then you can load it back in through data import. So we do it, but it'd be really nicer just to go, export it and have it come in. Okay, so recommendations. So if you're thinking about implementing authority control, the first thing I would say, and very important, is deduplicate your authority file before your initial loading. Even if you are absolutely certain, as I was, Paul, that you have no duplicates in your authority file, I would have laid my life down for that, and I would have been wrong. And so I just want to give a shout out to Kyle. He worked heroically to fix this problem for us, because we loaded a file I thought was pristine, I swear, and then there were all these duplicates, which at that point in time we couldn't delete. So, but we got taken care of it. The other thing is then when you are going on with your work, you want to load your authority records with a job profile that first looks for matches and then loads a new authority record. So look for match, then load new. I can't tell you how important that is, because even when you are absolutely certain that the record you're bringing in is not a duplicate, I would still say, like, 1 time out of 10 for my team, it turns out that somehow we missed that record for any number of reasons. And we'll load these records and think, yeah, this is a brand new record. And then, oh, look, it overlaid. So you want to prevent duplicate authority records. any way possible. If it is possible, get training for your staff on searching inventory and on record editing in MARC Edit. We didn't, so we were all there learning, paddling fiercely and getting it all done. The thing was, what we found actually because we got a lot of training when we were implementing. I realize now that the training was all oriented for cataloging, and how to do data import and use job profiles, but nobody seemed to pay any attention to how do you search inventory. As if, maybe it was only my team that was that lives and dies on that. So we've amassed a lot of tricks and documentation for ourselves. But if you can get that kind of training for your staff, it'll go easier. And last, I'd say consider doing large-scale record editing projects before migration or enlisting the help of a vendor. Now, that is not, I am not trying to say you can't do large-scale editing projects in Folio, with the MARC Authority App and inventory. You can. But what I'm saying is that if you know there's some batch or something you have to get fixed before your migration, I think you should do it in the system you well understand, right? And just get it done. And we did a lot of that before we migrated. Rather than wait, now I'm in this new system and I don't know how everything works. I think that is the end for me. And okay, yes, I'll turn it over to Palua.
Well, actually, I would just say, does anybody have any questions for Lisa? Other than to say she's awesome, but any questions for Lisa? Are there any questions in chat?
Oh, should have been looking.
It doesn't look like it. Any questions?
Wait a minute.
All right, it looks like no questions in chat, so I guess I'll begin.
Okay. Here,
Oh, actually, Christy has a question. Christy.
Yes, I apologize if I missed it. I was a couple minutes late. But can you really talk about which aspects of your workflow you're using vendor services for in terms of adding updates or authority record deliveries?
So we have two services from the same authority vendor. So one is the authority file update. So once a month, we happen to pick a month as our interval. They compare our authority file, because they keep a copy of those numbers, against LC's file, and any record that has been updated, they send to us. So that way you get both the records that have had heading changes, which are the ones you really need, right? But you also get all those changes where extra information has been added, like to the body of the record. So they send that to us and we load it. We also, once a month, on a different day, we gather up all our new cataloging for that month and we send it to our vendor. They do authority control on it. They add URIs, because we do have URIs in our catalog, and thank goodness I don't have to put them in manually. They put the URIs in, and then they send those records back to us with supporting authority records. I have to say, I'm actually kind of surprised, because we usually get about 2,000 changed or new authority records, more new than from what we sent out from, which is weird, because we've already had the 5,000 update. So it just shows you there's a lot of change going on all the time. We have, I will say this, we have occasionally had projects with our vendor. We did have one to remediate harmful language. We changed the word Indian in Indians to indigenous peoples. And our vendor did help us with it. We sent them a bunch of records and they sent us back. That's one of my two local authority files. All right, yes.
So early in the presentation, I'm writing this. So I'm trying to do it. You had mentioned that some authority records, and some linking was working well and some wasn't.
Yeah.
Is there any examples of the ones that are or aren't?
Personal names work great. Uniform, is that uniform titles? Uniform titles work great. Author titles where they're in a 100 and a 240, they work fantastic. Best I've ever, like, because the author gets the URI, gets control just the author, and the title in the 240 gets controlled by the author title, by that authority record. Subjects that are just like one word, they work great. Corporate names, corporate names work well. Titles that have language at the end of them, all that has worked well. I would say the thing that works least well are conference names. This is just a weird thing. Conference names that are in the 1XX field, so the 111. Okay, I have a spreadsheet to send you about this. So she's here this is the first time. Well, I think what's happening is the logic for the order of subfields for personal names is being used for the conference name. So the C and the D. So because in conference names at the end, subfield subfield D for date comes before C for place names. And what happens when we control it right now is that the D will come before the C, or sometimes the C drops off. And if there's a subfield N for numbering, we lose it. Yeah, so it's just, but it doesn't happen in the 711 field.
Just in the 111.
Just 111, so we didn't, everything can be linked. A lot of it is what do you want linked, and I think the biggest pressing problem is the subject strings, because if the authority record has 3 subdivisions, you want all 3 of them in the control box. Oh, and let me also say, you can control, and I have local authorities, so you can do it. I was actually quite amazed that worked because they don't have URIs. But it puts the identifier in the subfield 0, which I think is just fine for now, because I'm not going to create a linked database of my local authority file. And so that has we've been able to control mesh and AAT. We were controlling the RBMS and all our locals. So there's a lot of good things working. Just a few tweaky things. Yes.
This is really useful.
Good.
Just one follow-up question about, I'm guessing the subjects that aren't including are the complex subjects where there's no record of the entire string.
Yeah.
And are you just relying on your member Git update service to check those when it gets changed? And is that working out? Okay.
It is. Okay, well. Fundamentally, we all have a problem with the complex subjects that have multiple subdivisions. We have a linked data problem for those. There's no way are we ever going to have authority records for every possible, like think of those free floating subdivisions, right? For every possible variation of something. So that we know that, but on the other hand, we know that it was decided long ago, I believe, and certainly in the PCC report on URIs in MARC, that a field gets 1 URI. Right? So we as a community already decided we were not going to go down the road of having URIs for every subdivision. I mean, that's possible in MARC, but it could be confusion about like which URI went with which subdivision. So I think we made the right decision, in my humble opinion. But then we, and actually mostly LC, I think, because of BibFrame, has this fundamental problem of there are going to be subject strings that you can never control all of them. And this is actually, I don't know, we've talked a little bit about this. The trouble is, that's also annoying. Like, it's right that you can't control it, but it's also annoying. So, let's say I have a country name, and then you've got all kinds of subdivisions, various variations, and that are not established. So so it's all not controlled. But let's say that country changes its name. I want to be like, I always feel like we should be able to just go in and change that. So I don't know if we as a community know what we want to do with these complex, with pre-coordinated subject strings. Most recent conversation I had with a colleague back home was, I was telling her this, I was ranting about this. And she said, well, I guess we'll all have to just go to FAST. And I suddenly thought, oh, is that where we're headed? Anyway, you didn't hear that from me. But yes, the parts of complex subject strings, pre-coordinated strings, we do rely on our vendor to tell us those. Sorry. Oh, I don't know if there's someone in chat. Okay, so there's a question in chat. Someone at a different conference suggested not migrating authority records and instead load them all after the implementation. Well, okay, we loaded our BIP records and then loaded our authority records because of the timing and everything. It was, taking up all kinds of resources to load the BIP records, so we weren't going to load them at the same time. And I think our implementation team, well, let's say it was not clearly stated by anybody right in the beginning that our implementation was going to include authority records. Pretty much we got to right before implementation, and I'm throwing a hissy fit saying, what about the authority records? And then everybody was like, oh. So that's why it happens later. You could certainly load all your BIP records and wait on loading your authority records. That would certainly work. It wouldn't cause any problems, I would think. My concern about wanting to get them in as soon as possible was that authority control doesn't sleep. Changes come every single day. And if you get behind, you'll never get dug out of those changes. So that's why, like I say, we migrated our BIP records. We had lists of things. My folks, within 3 days, now admittedly, that's a small effort, but we were right on it. Because you have to for authority control. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Any other questions for Lisa? All right. Great. So I'm going to talk more about authority control. I'm going to skip a couple of slides here. But I just want to describe what is currently available as far as functionality. So everything you see here is what is available as an ORCID release. Lisa already talked about quite a few of these things, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But the key thing to mention is that the authority control logic is based on the presence of a subfield 0 in the bib field. We don't do string matching of any sort. You have to have a subfield 0 in your bib field to do authority control. So of everything on here, Lisa already talked about it. I just wanted to focus on that part there. I'm going to skip through these slides because, again, Lisa already covered quite a bit of this. But that's one report we have. Authority headings report. And Vivian, yes, I know we need more. So this is authority control is kind of a phased approach. as Lisa mentioned, we decided to go with manual as well because we wanted to make sure we understood the logic we were implementing and didn't just provide automated. And so it has, it's been a phased approach in that way. So with ORCID, we released the manual approach, manual linking, with the link match point of the bid field having a subfield 0. So that's what's already available on ORCID. Poppy, we now have automated linking, again, based on subfield 0, but for a single record via the UI. Over the next couple releases, the plan is to support batch. We obviously know that that's needed, and that's the end goal as far as linking goes, is to support batch automated linking plus reports. I'm sorry, I'm looking at Vivian who's about reports, and then discovery service support. We know we need to support discovery, discoverability of authorities for searching and other things. So that's kind of the phased approach when it comes to authorities and the path forward. And you'll see that there are links to either features or to a wiki page that has all of this laid out here. Quickly, just a couple of the new features in Poppy that are tied to authority control. So this is a feature that Christine, my counterpart, product owner on Spitfire, did. And this is the ability to create a new MARC bid record via the UI. So this will be available in Poppy. I'm gonna just kind of click through this again here. So this is some of the other Poppy functionality as well. Create a bid record via the UI, automate linking, as I mentioned, when you create, edit, or derive from the UI. Tenant level configuration, one of the things we've learned in our development is to make a lot of this functionality tenant level configurable, because every library may have different sets of rules when it comes to authority control. So in this case, the library can decide when it comes to automated linking, which bid fields can actually be automated linked. So maybe some don't want subject, for example, and prefer names and titles. So they'll have the ability to set that up via an API. It will not be available through the UI. We made some manual linking UX improvements based on feedback we heard from Michigan State and others. And we improved some of the race conditions too. There's some bit of race conditions we had to handle. We do have one report. It's a report that we always hope will always have 0 results, but it's failed link bid fields updates. So if it fails to update, there will be a report that you can view. And we also are implementing consortia support as well as a part of Poppy. Lisa talked about inventory advanced search modal. I thought I'd show what it would look like. So it looks a little bit different than what Lisa showed because we did add some enhancements. The enhancements that you see will also be a part of the authority advanced search modal that Lisa uses all the time. And so you'll see you'll have the ability to do Boolean search. You can select your search options, and you can also select how to search, whether it's a starts with, contains all, contains any. I think there may be exact phrase as well. So this will be available in Poppy as far as the inventory app goes too. And then automated authority control here. So I'm actually gonna demo this right now. So as many folks know, my team uses the graphic novel Black Panther when we're testing. And when you go to the instance record here, you'll see a button called link headings. This will only be enabled when an eligible bid or linkable bid field has a subfield 0. If you have no subfield 0s, that's disabled. And so as I scroll down here, you'll see with 100, there's a presence of a subfield 0. You don't have to express the entire URI, you could just have the ID. Now that ID right here is either, in this case, it's the Library of Congress record. So it's in the 010 subfield A of the authority record. So when I hit link headings, it's going to look for the 010 subfield A and the authority heading and see if there's a match. If there's a match, it's gonna link. There's no match, well, okay. Pretty self-explanatory there, shouldn't have said that part. And then with some other fields here, I think I have a fast heading here. Yeah, so for some of the fast headings, it's not necessarily going to look at the 010 subfield A. It's going to look at the 001. So if there's a match in the authority record 001, then it's going to link. Now, for the POPI release, the plan is to disable by default these auto linking for subjects. But when I last demoed this, the QA team had actually enabled it and it worked. So when I hit link headings, it could do the same thing. But the reason why by default we have it turned off is because we still have yet to implement subject authority validation. So until we actually are validating on the indicator 2 in subfield 2, we've decided to turn it off. However, if you want, you can put it on. It's just that we won't do that validation until the Q release. Okay. So now I feel like I should do a drum roll here. But now I'm gonna hit link headings. And you'll see that subjects was disabled. And so as a result, only the 100 field and the 700 fields were actually controlled. And it's the same treatment that Lisa talked about. If it's controlled, it's a read-only, you can't edit it. And any of the non-controlled subfields, you can't edit. And the match point, which is the subfield 0, is also read-only as well. Vivian.
Just to confirm what I think I already understand. If the bid heading does not have a subfield 0, you can still seek out an authority record in the database and link it manually.
Correct, you can. So the manual piece, and I actually can show this with 655 here. So I could click on link to MARC records. It brings up the logo here that allows you to search. In this case, it defaults to browse. That's a change that we made for POPI, where we now default to browse. And then from here, you can look for your record here. One other change, since I'm at it, I should also bring up is when we initially released this in ORCID, we as a PI, I didn't do a good thing. I should have made this, I should have pre-populated, auto-populated this field. And so I kind of forced people like Lisa and folks on our staff to copy the information from the bid field and then paste it in here. So with POPI, we now pre-populate. And so if we see the identifier, we'll actually conduct an advanced search so that you can actually get the authority records you're looking for. And so in this case here, I can look and see which one I want, whether I want the one that's a fast, in this case I do, or if I want the one that is the Library of Congress subject heading. And so from here, I can pick this first one, pick Black people interested. And from there, I can link that and hit save. Once I hit the right mouse. So that's a change that's coming in POPI and is tied to what Lisa mentioned. All right. Now back to the rest of this. I already showed that. That's great. So with 10 minutes to spare, I'm going to talk about what to know before you migrate. So Lisa already covered a great bit of it. I just wanted to add on a few more things related to authority control. Once again, eligible bid fields must have a subfield 0 to use our authority control functionality. So you can migrate and import multiple subfield 0s. You can do that, but you got to have something in order for us to do the link between the bid field and the authority heading. If you want to maintain your previous ILS authority ID, You can use subfield 0. I think this actually was a discussion that was started by Stanford. I think Vitus, I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Vitus. He's the one who brought this up, and we played around with this and realized, yes, you can use a subfield 0 or another subfield, but not subfield 9. Please do not use that, because that's where we are populating the authority UUID, the link between the authority record and the bid field. And so we just have a requirement. You can't use it on eligible bid fields, subfield 9. You can use it anywhere else, but it cannot be used on any of the eligible bid fields for linking. If you're using Library of Congress authorities, I assume some of you are, just make sure your authority records have the 010 subfield A. I assume they do, but I'm just putting it out there anyway. And also, if you are if you have authorities that use the 010 subfield A, please do not use values that are similar to the Library of Congress. I've actually seen records that do that. So either put that value somewhere else or use something else. But when you do that, that kind of impacts the logic we have for authority linking. So Lisa already talked about the first bullet point about the LCCN. For that matching, just make sure you have a valid prefix. It doesn't matter about the white spaces. We know that it's a Library of Congress record. We know if it's a subject, we know if it's a named authority. We'll know. For non-LC authorities like MESH or AAT, just make sure that the identifier is in the 010 subfield A or 001. We'll check 001 subfield A first. It's not there. We'll check 001. For MESH and for AAT, they must start with a prefix. So with MESH, I believe it's D. With AAT, we look at AAT, and sometimes we look at AATG as well. So as long as they have a prefix, we can match it up. Same thing with FAST. As long as it's in the 001 and it starts with FST, we're good. And local authorities, well, you can actually set up your own rules. So there's an API where you can actually set up your own rules for whether you want a base URL, you need one. What should we check for, the 001 or the 001 subfield A? You can set that up through that API. And if you have any other questions about the supported authority files that we implement by default, there's the wiki page for that. So if you went to the previous meeting, you know that work is in progress to improve data import reliability when loading large record sets. We know that's something we have to work on with authorities, and we'll continue to improve that area. And that's why linking is not available through data import. Although I don't know if anybody from NLA is here. They figured something out. I'm not sure what, but they figured out how to do the linking when they did the migration. And then post-migration, when linking a bid heading or field to an authority heading, we currently keep the subfield that 0 that is linked and matched and remove additional subfield zeros. And so my question to this group is, what do you think about that? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Oh, thanks.
So do we all.
I don't think I'm making it up. Brooks, they did figure out how to do the linking. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, you work out. All right. They did an API to do the linking. Okay. It sounds like From the exchanges, yeah, it seemed like it was, so maybe that's I don't know if Tara is here, maybe that's a Folio implementer session where where NLA talks about it. Oh. Okay, so we may get an appearance from Terrence who can explain it in 3 minutes, okay. So that's just some tips here, and again, we only have a few minutes left. These are some questions I had, these are the questions I had, but it's actually, what questions do you all have? Yes.
Could you possibly do that? The authority records through AI, yeah.
The question is it possible to export the authority records via OAI PMH? And no, it's not possible at this time. Any other questions?
Was that, there was something on your timeline they talked about authority discipline. Is that likely to lead to
It'll be different. It will be more to support search, discovery, browse activities. I don't think at this time we didn't have any plans to support OEI PMH, but maybe we have to consider them. Brooks? That's a great question, Brooks. Yeah, we will support. I believe Artie's on the call too, for those who know Artie. We will support C3950 for authorities for the Q release. Oh, I don't know about whatever Artie says we need to support. It's Christine.
say something about the automotive and a single record import and how that was working?
We don't have support for that yet. There's no support for data import.
Or what it's talking about.
Well,
I'm probably wrong.
well, no. Let's double check here. Single record via UI. And what I meant, I'm sorry, let's do catch. I only meant from this screen here, hold on, but not through data import.
I see.
Hmm.
Sorry.
No, I'll address that. Any other questions? All right, well, I should just I should screen cap this, what Jen wrote. All right, well, I want to thank Lisa Robinson for doing. And everyone have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, but everyone who's online too.